So hey guys. The series name is What If Naruto X Wonder Woman Harem. This is second part of the series. So let's start the series. Naruto soon showed them the manner of Konoha's reconstruction and then how he had asked to be taught the Chidori from Kakashi and how he had been denied that by his sensei. However, the Amazons wondered just what was the reason why his own sensei would refuse to teach him, as it was his duty to teach his students evenly. Naruto was also thinking about that part a long time ago. Only difference was he knew now why, as lightning was not his true elemental affinity and he had actually trained in the jutsu much later in his life, though he did it rather differently than Sasuke did. Why would he refuse to teach you as he is your mentor, as it were? Naruto looked at the Amazon asking that question and saw that it was Philippus herself and could understand just why she was asking the question. At the time Kakashi was teaching Sasuke and would have taught me as well, but it was Jiraiya who convinced him to focus on Sasuke and he dealt with me. And why is that the case? Naruto had to admit that when he was a kid, he wondered briefly if Kakashi had favoritism towards Sasuke, but that was then. He now realized that with Itachi being the only living Uchiha second to Sasuke, and the truth of his mission against the Uchiha clan not yet known to him, Kakashi, and Sasuke, it would have to fall to Kakashi to train Sasuke, as despite being a non-Uchiha, experience-wise, apart from Itachi to be certain, Kakashi was the only one who could help Sasuke. There was also the fact that much later in his youth he learned that he did not possess an affinity to lightning chakra, which was the basis of the Chidori, and the fact that without the Sharingan to counter any sudden changes from the movement of his enemies, one using the Chidori had to go in a straight line, a risky move if an enemy evaded the attack. Besides, if he had not gone with Jiraiya, he would have never learned the Rasengan and a few other things that would play well into him becoming the man he was now. Plus meeting the women who would become part of his life helped, with Tsunade being a mother figure / grandmother figure and Shizune becoming like a big sister to him. Because at the time, Kakashi was the only one who had the Sharingan who was aligned with Konoha, even if he was not a full-blooded Uchiha himself. So he had to be the one, as he had been using the Sharingan the longest apart from Itachi, and in a way, I did indeed learn some new techniques from the pervy sage. The Amazons witnessed the two travel, and while none too pleased with Jiraiya's use of money, they saw him use the Rasengan and explain that this was the jutsu he planned to teach Naruto. It was clear that seeing the technique in Naruto's memories had gained the interest of the Amazons for their own reasons, yet they admitted that the technique, while alien to them, was effective, even more so when the technique was used on a rogue ninja. They witnessed Naruto struggle to learn the technique and eventually find ways to overcome some of the obstacles while they searched for Tsunade. They actually found the idea of him being inspired by a kitten playing around with a ball of yarn rather amusing but also innovative. Then they saw him work in the next step despite numerous failures. This dedication and work ethic was of interest to them. However, things were not going to be easy, as they had to deal with none other than Akatsuki members Itachi Uchiha and Kisame Hoshigaki. The situation became more complicated when Sasuke appeared and was deathly intent on slaying Itachi. Sadly, even though they never met Sasuke or Itachi personally, the Amazons were very unsure of the younger brother's chance of success. Diana soon asked a question as she wondered just how Sasuke learned that his sibling was around. How did Sasuke learn of Itachi being around? Itachi and Kisame came to Konoha to try and track me down but had been spotted by Jounin Asuma Sarutobi and Yuhi Kurenai. Both were the sensei of their own teams, as Kakashi sensei was. Asuma was leader of the team of Ino Yamanaka of the Yamanaka clan, Chuji Akamichi of the Akamichi clan, and Shikamaru Nara of the Nara clan. Kurenai was the leader of the team of my future wife Hinata Hyuga of the Hyuga clan, Kiba Inazuka of the Inazuka clan, and Shino Aburame of the Aburame clan. They intercepted the pair, and while initially having an edge, they were in a dire way until my sensei arrived to help them. Naruto naturally got the details of what happened years later from Kurenai and Kakashi when they were still alive. He would have asked Asuma, but by the time he heard that the Jounin was involved, Haiden had already killed him. That and the fact Itachi filled him in later in the afterlife on what happened as well. But Itachi used Tsukiyomi on my sensei that made him suffer what felt 3 days of intense torture in a realm of illusions, but in the real world, only a few minutes would pass. It was only when Mado Gai, Rock Lee's sensei, who was actually adept at fighting Sharingan users, that they got out of that mess. They had attempted to hide the truth from Sasuke since they were all well aware that my old teammate had the desire to kill Itachi, But one of the other shinobi had arrived and demanded if it was true that Itachi had been there and looking for me right in earshot of Sasuke. And it led to the moment that Itachi attacked Sasuke with the same technique he used on our sensei. He never liked revealing that part, and Itachi himself in the afterlife personally admitted that using it on Sasuke was something he was not proud of. But it had played its part in shaping Sasuke, and he accepted that. They witnessed the outcome of the meeting, Sasuke being sent back to Konoha for recovery as Itachi and Kisame retreated. Here Jiraiya would reveal Akatsuki to Naruto and also their goal in extracting the bijou from others like him. He however had no plans on letting that happen, and soon they would witness the meeting between him and Tsunade when they finally found the blonde Sannin in a bar with Shizune. They soon witnessed his meeting with Tsunade Senju, and apparently they had no idea that she was something of a drunkard and had one hell of a gambling addiction. Couple that with what Naruto described as notoriously bad luck, the result was not a good one. Still, despite this, it was clear that he held the woman in high regard, so they decided to wait for more to be shown to them as Naruto explained in detail how this meeting turned out and how the two of them became like family. Of course it didn't help matters that whenever her luck in gambling changed for the better, something bad usually was on the horizon for her, and our arrival was at a very bad time. Hippolyta was curious with that statement but decided to observe for now, and soon she and the other Amazons who were curious got their answer as Tsunade revealed that she had encountered Orochimaru alongside Shizune. Apparently the snake Sannin, despite the loss of his limbs due to Hiruzen, knew that he could be helped by Tsunade and had extended a powerful offer to his former comrade in arms. And that was in exchange for bringing him back full use of his arms via medical jutsu. He would use the Edo Tenchi to bring back two very important people in her life who she lost. And to the shock of the Amazons, it seemed to have a powerful effect on the blonde Sannin, which resulted in her being drunk when Naruto and Jiraiya found her. Needless to say, the revelation of Orochimaru coming to her did not sit well with Naruto or Jiraiya. But it was Tsunade's bad-mouthing the Hokage and what it meant in her bitter state that enraged Naruto and naturally led to a confrontation between the two. She looked at the face-off intently and could understand the reason on why Naruto was furious, even though it was clear that at this time period of his life he had no idea that the fourth Hokage was his father. Diana herself was also very much curious to see how this fight would turn out and also learn how this relationship grew between Tsunade and Naruto. The same could be said for Dana as well as some of the Amazons. Naruto recalled that very well but did not mind it too much. It was after all something that would define his relationship with Tsunade, who was in truth his relative due to her being half Uzumaki. Of course he could see that not everyone shared the same balanced opinion that he had for Tsunade, though in hindsight they at least did not react too badly. The battle played out between the two, and Tsunade was actually surprised by Naruto's resolve, and even more so when seeing him use the Rasengan for the first time at her, though at the time it was still incomplete and unstable. Needless to say, he did not hit her accurately, and after some serious talking he dared to master the Rasengan in 1 week, with Tsunade finally using her necklace as collateral. He trained to prove Tsunade wrong and several the halfway mark when he was visited by Shizune and began to explain the actions and nature of Tsunade. Though at the time Naruto was not the least bit willing to listen, it was here that he insulted Tsunade greatly for her actions and words until Shizune finally revealed Tsunade had lost two very important people in her life. One made her the last of the Senju, and the other was the love of her life and who shared her dreams, and how it was the necklace that he was now attempting to win from her that had a hand in their deaths in a sense. Diana recovered a bit and spoke to Naruto as she now saw the pattern on why, despite knowing how vile he was, Tsunade was tempted to help him. It was her brother and her deceased love that Orochimaru intended to bring back to life using that Eden Tenchi. Naruto nodded and spoke of what he knew of it, though he kept in mind not to go too deeply into details as this happened long before his time, and even when he finally managed to meet Dan and Nawaki in the afterlife and chat with them, he decided never to ask how they died as it was not his place to do so. I never knew all the details and I refused to ask Dan and Nawaki even when I met them in the afterlife, but from what Shizune told me, Nawaki was pretty much like me in our youth, loud, boisterous, dedicated, and more. Heck, we even at some point looked the same then. Tsunade gave him her necklace as he wanted to be Hokage and be the best Hokage that Konoha would have, and he would bring pride back to the Senju name. Sadly, he was killed at the same age I was when I met Tsunade on a mission. I never knew how bad it was, but it was bad enough that even though he was brought back Tsunade hardly recognized him. The only thing that could tell her that this was her beloved younger brother was the necklace. With that Tsunade lost Nawaki and as far as things went because the last full-blooded Senju left alive in the world. All I know about the aftermath of it was that she was in mourning for a week or so, and it was only her promise to him that she would carry on that she finally got back to doing what she could for Konoha. Diana nodded and despite herself looked at her sister Donna and wondered how she would have handled herself had she been in Tsunade's place now. If there had been someone who could bring Donna back from the dead to her if her sister had been slain somehow, but in exchange doing so would help to bring back the powers of a dark monster. It was therefore something that made her realize how difficult it would be for Tsunade to make such a choice, even though it would have eased her feelings of guilt and disgust for being unable to save her only living sibling. Diana was not the only one to think that, though in her case, Hippolyta herself could understand how despondent Tsunade was. Losing family was always painful, even more so when the life lost is not only so young, but also if it made you the last of your family. She also was able to see the appearance of Nawaki and had to admit that he resembled Naruto greatly in terms of youth. The other Amazons were still silent, but they were indeed paying attention to this as they wanted to see how all these events play out. Naruto shook his head at that, recalling how he began to understand just why Tsunade was such a bitter woman then, but he knew that he had a story to tell, so he continued. Eventually Tsunade made requests to the Hokage and the Jonin Council to allow medic nin of either gender to be assigned to all ninja teams or have one of them trained to some degree in medical jutsu in order to lessen the losses suffered in the field. Not all agreed with it for one reason or another, but Tsunade Obasan was very serious. It was also here that she met Dan, her fiancé, who was actually Shizen's uncle. He too wanted to help Konoha, and unlike some of the wizened old farts back then in the day, he had his head on straight. Naturally he and Tsunade hit it off, and after several months of courting and even doing missions together, Dan made the more to propose to Tsunade and vowed to be Hokage someday. She had some misgivings on this, but Tsunade gave Dan the necklace, and in the end, Alexa spoke next. He died as well? Yes, only difference was that unlike last time, according to Shizunichin, Tsunade was there, but even when she poured all of her power, knowledge, and more into trying to save him, Dan died right before her. She was lost there and then and developed a deep-seated fear of blood soon after, no longer willing to stay in Konoha even though the medic nin system she and Dan fought for was approved. She left with Shizun and that pet pig of hers Tun to accompany her, and her holding on to the necklace to never allow the curse it carried to claim another life. They were the ones Orochimaru used as a set of bargaining chips to convince Tsunade to heal him and allow him to wipe Konoha off the map. Jiraiya did warn her that if she did side with Orochimaru, then regardless of his still present affections for her, he would kill her. The Amazons were silent at this and merely continued to witness the memories play out, and soon they witnessed the battle between Tsunade and Orochimaru as well as Kabuto. Naruto soon explained that from his discussions with Tsunade much later in their lives, she revealed that she had instead planned to kill Orochimaru instead of healing him and had no intention of letting Dan and Nawaki's dreams be sullied by her former teammate, that along with the fact that if she did allow it to happen, the Edo Tenshi would the most vile travesty one did to the dead, and neither Nawaki nor Dan would ever forgive her for it. That, and she knew that the very second he got what he wanted, Orochimaru would no doubt use both her brother and lover to kill her once he took away their free will. The Amazons witnessed Tsunade fight both Orochimaru and Kabuto for a time, but Kabuto was quick to use Tsunade's fear of blood against her, thus despite unleashing from very powerful attacks. The only female Sanin's phobia stopped her momentum, and now she was in danger. It was here that he, Jiraiya and Shizun arrived. But with Tsunade drugging Jiraiya earlier, it was not a good situation. Even more so when Naruto, who was not as powerful as he was now, faced off with Kabuto, who he knew now to be a spy. They witnessed him use a novel way to create the Rasengan with the use of Kage Bunshin. Much to the amazement of Tsunade, as the Rasengan was not an incomplete one but a fully formed Rasengan, and it was undeniably a powerful one, and smashing it hard into Kabuto. It seemed to be a victory, but Naruto had been attacked earlier and he was actually dying, as Kabuto's use of medical chakra had severed the muscles in his heart and he was going to die. That was shocking for Alexa, as the idea of someone using such potent healing techniques to commit murder was offensive to her as a healer. And the same could be said for the other healers who had been impressed by this healing jutsu that the ninja of Naruto's land favored. But despite Kabuto's prediction that Naruto would die, Tsunade refused to let him die, never again, and lo and behold, despite her past tragedies and her pain, she brought Naruto back from the brink of death. And even when Orochimaru sought to end Naruto due to his powerful use of the Rasengan, Tsunade had changed as she willingly stood to defend Naruto. After forcing Orochimaru back, she now decided to go into the fight, no longer willing to do nothing else and stand beside Jiraiya. Seeing Tsunade fight in battle, no longer affected by her fear of blood, was quite an eyeful for the Amazons, as she was certainly living up to the praise Naruto heaped on her. Even more so when she was actually stabbed by a sword and yet had the physical and mental will to ignore the pain and fight back. The fact that the wounds were by all rights fatal to any normal person showed to them just how potent and strong this Tsunade was to the Amazons. They were also impressed by the fact that she was able to summon up her power to heal all her injuries and then summon a massive slug. At first one would think that such an ability would be odd, but the fact that the creature could speak as well as show intelligence when Tsunade spoke to it, the only reason Naruto knew of this was due to his time in the afterlife. Hearing the bloodthirsty nature of Manda and how he saw his fellow summons as well as his own summoner made the warrior women very wary of him. And needless to say, she lived up to the praise that Naruto gave to her, and even though she was not as fast as she was, and even though she and Jiraiya were not at full strength, they showed immense skill and power, which explained to them how come Naruto held both in high regard. Despite this, Orochimaru managed to leave the battleground, and after some time, Tsunade gave her necklace to Naruto and they soon went back to Konoha, and the blonde Sannin took the position of Hokage and worked on curing the injured, namely Rock Lee and eventually Sasuke, though most of his more serious injuries were of the emotional and mental kind, and though they took on a number of missions, it was clear that Sasuke was deep in thought about how he had been easily bested by his brother. It was not long before one final mission resulted in Sasuke being taken to medical once more, but soon the Amazons saw the two teammates clash. Even more so when the two came to the roof of the hospital with a very worried Sakura, who did not want this to happen. But it was clear that the now irate and angry Sasuke was not deterred, and neither was Naruto, and soon they clashed, and the intent in their attacks was seen by the Amazons. It was when the two were now using the Rasengan and the Chidori in the climax of the confrontation that it seemed to have reached a point that they would actually kill one another. It was only when Kakashi himself came in and stopped them that the whole situation was resolved. But it was clear that this had shown that Naruto and Sasuke were in a sense now enemies, though it was clear that Naruto still had no desire for this situation to play out anymore. Naruto and Sakura spoke of it, and it was clear to Naruto that Sakura's feelings for Sasuke were not merely because he was good-looking or whatnot, but because she did love him and wanted him not to go any further into the darkness, and she did not want any more fighting between him and Sasuke. But sadly it was not long before Naruto was told that Sasuke had been seen with the Sound Four and Sakura had tried to stop him but had been knocked out and left. He, along with Shikamaru, Chuji, Kiba and Akamaru, as well as Niji Hyuga, moved out to track him down and prevent Orochimaru from taking him. They also saw the emotions shown by Naruto when he promises Sakura that he will bring Sasuke back and make her smile again. Dana soon spoke of this, noticing something and recalling just how Naruto seemed to act when he saw Sakura hugging Sasuke when the young Uchiha survivor awoke. "You were in love with Sakura then?" Naruto nodded. I had a crush on Sakura for a long while, and even though it lessened somewhat as we got older, it was still there. At the time I was not that aware of Hinata's affection for me, and I personally found her to be weird and shy, but I liked her as a friend then. I never knew about how much she loved me until much later. The truth in that statement was seen by the Amazons, and Alexa then spoke on that. "You were unaware?" "Oh yes, I was. Not only that, I was not exactly popular in my village then, considering who I was and what I carried. At any rate, we had to deal with Age Sound 4, and while I did have my brief battles with them, it was my fellow team mates who fought them. My real fight was with Sasuke." And true enough, the images showed his brief but meaningful encounters with the Sound Four, and the strongest encounter was when he faced none other than the last of the Kaguya clan, Kimimaro. The ninja's use of his own skeleton and bones as weapons for range and close combat was rather disconcerting for the Amazons, as they had not thought it was possible for someone to actually use his or her own bones in such a manner and somehow remain alive as well. Artemis was quick to comment on that fact as her look of disgust was obvious. How in the name of the gods is he doing that and yet remain alive? Not really sure, all I know of him was what I learned of his clan, which was the Kaguya clan, related to Princess Kaguya somehow as well to be sure. The Kaguya clan were from the land of water and were among the clans who took serious part in the wars there that led to the Kekkei Genkai purges. They were in what I learned the worst since they were engrossed in the chance to wage war and bloodshed. They willingly attacked Kirigakure and fought to the last man and woman, even child solely for the chance for wholesale slaughter, but even among such a blood-lusting clan like their own, they were actually terrified of Kimimaro because he was the only one of their clan to have the Kekkei Genkai that you all see now. That alone should tell you that despite his looks, Kimimaro was no weakling even if he was being killed by a major sickness. Naruto's words were spot on as they saw that he was more than able to fight with speed and power and fought like a true killer, even when Naruto used a portion of Kurama's power. Kimimaro was more than able to hold his own even when outnumbered. He delayed Naruto long enough for Sasuke to finally escape, and it was only when Rock Lee arrived that Naruto finally had the opening he needed to track down Sasuke. And track him down he did, but this was not going to go the way Naruto hoped it would as he finally faced Sasuke. The Amazons witnessed the battle between Sasuke and Naruto unfold ironically enough in the Valley of the End, the very same place that had been the site where the founders of Konoha, Hashirama Senju and Madara Uchiha would one day fight their own personal war to the death, despite Naruto's attempts to try and stop the fall of his friend and also speak or knock some sense into him. It was clear that Sasuke was more determined to side with Orochimaru to get the power he needed to kill Itachi, even if it meant turning on his own team, friends, and his village. The battle between the two former friends and teammates was fierce and utterly brutal, even more so when they saw Sasuke actually use his Chidori to spear Naruto in the chest. Had he not moved his body at the right moment, he would have died in that instant as the blow was aimed directly at the heart, a fatal spot no matter who you were. The other Amazons were looking at the sight with various looks of shock, disgust and whatnot. As for Naruto himself, he could not help but grimace at the memory. Sure, he made peace with Sasuke long ago, but seeing this memory again was hardly pleasant, let alone recalling the pain of the blow. Still, reliving the memory was something he knew he had to do in order to see that all questions of his origins were put to rest. He looked at the Amazons and he could tell that they were trying to digest just how it had come to this. Hippolyta looked at the whole image intently and she could see that the incident was of great significance for the blonde, though she could not help but wince at the sight of the lightning-covered fist appearing out at the back of the blonde in his past, and despite herself she had to admit that the sight of the young blonde still alive, though barely from such a brutal move, was indeed worthy of respect. 13 and he was already in battles that could have killed any youth without training his age, but this, by Hera. Diana could not help but stare at the sight before her. She knew that these were memories and she was only looking at them, but the sight of the blonde youth being speared like that by his former best friend and teammate was still chilling. Donna herself gulped and turned away from the sight, not wanting to see more of this. She was not the only one, as even Philippus was wide-eyed at the sight of such a blow. You managed to survive such a fierce blow? Yeah, barely moved my heart out of the way then. If I was a bit slower, I'd be dead. The rest of the Amazons agreed, and Diana could not help but look at the horrific sight as Sasuke then taunted Naruto while his arm was still there right through Naruto's body. The images then switched to the two finally going all out as Naruto finally summoned the chakra cloak of Kurama, though it was still in the blood-red form that it was then, not to be outdone. Sasuke unleashed his cursed seal, and with that and the Sharingan managed to stand up to Naruto and eventually used a move that had many Amazons gasping as the blow had actually snapped Naruto's neck. However, it was here that Kurama decided to get directly involved and save Naruto's life, healing him and granting him a power that at the time he had no control over. They witnessed him stand up and then attack Sasuke with the cloak now surrounding him and taking a more Lupin form with one tail. Naruto recalled that moment all too well and knew what was coming as he finally used Kurama's first-tailed cloak form. The transformation was all too familiar, and already the bloody anger and hatred that Kurama had in the past guided him back before he and the Bijou became friends. Naruto recalled that moment very well and sighed mentally to himself. Oh yeah, this is going to be interesting to see again. Interesting didn't even cover it, as it was not long before the Amazons saw the power that Kurama gave Naruto, even though the two were still very much at odds with one another. The devastating blows Naruto unleashed and the fact that his chakra was now not only solid but could also move on its own accord was something Sasuke could not prepare for. The power of the strike Naruto unleashed on him at the beginning was severe, and using the chakra to create spare limbs to toss and thrash Sasuke around tore the land around them even more. The fight proved to be a real bloody affair, and it seemed that even with the cursed seal Sasuke was in trouble, until he finally unleashed the second form and turned into, well, a monster that was unknown to the Amazons as they stared at his new form, and what powers it had given him at the cost of driving him even closer to the darkness that Naruto was trying to save him from. Even so, they could not help but look on in surprise at how the battle between the now transformed teens and the destruction they unleashed on one another was pretty much intense between them. It was not long before the Amazons witnessed the final clash and how Naruto had been unable to carry on, but instead of slaying him when H could, Sasuke left Naruto alone, and soon he was rescued by Kakashi, who was disheartened that it had come to this. They witnessed him promise to rescue Sasuke to Sakura and his defiance to Jiraiya's advice to drop it and move on, as he did when he tried to dissuade Orochimaru years ago, showing that he too had been in the same situation as Naruto was, but he decided that if Naruto was dead set on this, then he would need to train and improve himself. For now though, he would remain in Konoha until he got back to begin the journey. Hippolyta looked at the images before her that highlighted some of the many trials that Naruto would undergo before going into a 3-year training journey alongside Jiraiya. Many of them were interesting misadventures, some had even made the Amazons laugh in amusement, a much-needed distraction from the revelations of this young man's past. But others had played in a sense their very own role in forging Naruto into the person before them all. She personally found the incident with the curry of life very amusing, and the same could be said for Diana and Donna. Even Artemis barked a bit in amusement when she saw him literally pass out from the first batch that he had tried of the curry. Philippus merely raised an eyebrow and smirked in amusement at the sight. Alexa actually gulped and looked at him. Was it really that potent? Naruto groaned a bit at the memory but smiled a bit. Yes, it was, and to my everlasting shame, bushy brows managed to convince me when we were older to come back with him to try it again. I was in hospital for a week after that. This amused the Amazons, and soon as Jiraiya returned, they knew that the second half of Naruto's life soon to be seen. Naturally they witnessed his leaving the village and making his promise to come back soon and become not only Hokage but also to return Sasuke back. The missions he undertook prior to finally going with Jiraiya, the 2 years of intense training to refine his skills and also ensure that he was stronger for the many dangers and tests he would one day face. Not only to rescue Sasuke from his dark path, but Akatsuki as well, for there was no doubt they were not going to be quiet forever. They saw that despite his perverted tendencies, Jiraiya worked hard to teach Naruto to balance his skills and make sure to improve on the areas that he was deficient in to make him a more capable and efficient shinobi. They however also witnessed the one time that he had loosened the seal and allowed Naruto to reach the fourth-tailed state of Kurama's chakra in an attempt to allow Naruto to somehow control the chakra of Kurama more openly, though it did not work out the way the man hoped, as Naruto lost control as Kurama was quick to take advantage of the loosening of the seal, nearly killing him, though he sealed it again and told Naruto that he must find another means to be stronger than his overt reliance on Kurama's still hate-filled chakra. They also witnessed his return to Konoha was shown along with reuniting with Sakura, as well as Kakashi and his second bell test alongside Sakura against Kakashi. Here he showed his growth as a ninja and his increased combat skills as well. They also witnessed the beginning rescue mission to save Gaara, who had been attacked by Akatsuki members Deidara and Sasori, was soon seen. There they would see how Naruto revealed to both Sakura and Temari that he was a Jinchuriki like Gaara, answering the two's question on why Naruto took the kidnapping of Gaara by Akatsuki so seriously. And Naruto soon met none other than Chiyo, who carried an axe to grind towards Kakashi's father due to a long-ago loss of her son to Kakashi's father, and she was the one who, under the orders of Gaara's own father, the fourth Kazekage, to turn Gaara into a Jinchuriki. This was something that angered Naruto, but he placed that aside as he had to save Gaara. However, apart from Sasori and Deidara, Itachi and Kisame were in the field, and they were aided by Guy and his team of Neji, Tenten, and Rock Lee. The Amazons were somewhat impressed but also disgusted by Sasori's transformation from a human to a living doll of war willingly, and the way Deidara used his explosive clay in battle along with his blatant disregard for life, and they witnessed how despite his most valiant attempts, Naruto was unable to save his friend Gaara, a fellow Jinchuriki and who had once been his enemy until he knew that he was like him. He had been proud and somewhat annoyed that Gaara became a Kage before him, but had great faith in him, and was utterly enraged and despondent that he had not made it in time as Gaara's bijou. The Shikaku was extracted from him, leading to his death, and how he violently decried the life Chiyo gave Gaara by making him a Jinchuriki, demanding what right she and others had to call them monsters when they were the real monsters. The Amazons witnessed the angry and emotional exchange between Naruto and the elder woman Chiyo, and it was clear that Naruto's emotions were very much open to them to see. Calm down, Naruto Uzumaki. Shut up. You Kami-forsaken Sand Shinobi did this to him. You used him like he was just a weapon. If you hadn't put that thing into him, none of this would have happened to him. What right do you people have to do this to Gaara? To use him like this as if you are Kami and judge him nothing more than a tool? In his emotional state, Naruto lost some of his energy when he had been shouting at the elderly woman, but that hardly meant that it was over, as what the Amazons could see. Jinchuriki, what right do you people have to call us monsters? You think you have the right to stand there and use us like we are tools? Like we're nothing but weapons? Damn you and all like you. What gives you the right to think are better than us? You have no idea what it feels like to carry the burden like me and Gaara. We're monsters. We deserve to die. We're mistakes. From where I stand, you are the monsters. Normally the idea of an elderly woman being shouted at like that would offend the Amazons greatly, but after learning that it was indeed Chiyo who turned Gaara into what he was prior to his friendship with Naruto, they could not help but understand Naruto's rage towards her. Even Hippolyta felt anger at the idea of woman willing turning a child into a living weapon in such a manner, even if it was under the others of their leader. The fact that the leader was Gaara's own father angered her immensely. Naruto himself recalled his own emotional state back then and managed to relax himself. He knew what happened in the end. That hardly meant that it had less of an effect on him though. They saw how in repentance she gave her life to bring Gaara back, with Naruto providing his own chakra to aid in it, though at the time he had no idea that the technique would end with Gaara alive and Chiyo dead, and how she in her final moments spoke that perhaps under men like him and Gaara, Suna and Konoha would be able to have a bright future from all the mistakes the elders made. Place your hands on top of mine. You are indeed unique, Naruto Uzumaki, in this world of ninja, created by old people who have such frivolous desires, and worse. It is truly wonderful to see that such new souls like you can come into this world. Up to now all I have done in my life has been wrong, but finally in my last moments, I can finally do something right. The future of Suna and Konoha will be far brighter with people like you and Gaara, far better than the mess it was in our time, a mess old fools like me made because of our desires and thoughts. The last conversation between Chiyo and Naruto after she spoke to Sakura was for him to look after Gaara, and it was here that Temari, Kankuro and the other sand ninja arrived and were cheering for Gaara's resurrection, but were also saddened that in exchange for doing this Chiyo herself died. She died saving Gaara? Naruto looked to see Philippus asking the question and he responded in kind. Yeah, at first I thought she was going to do something to him, but after I learned the truth I realized that despite what I thought, there was a good person underneath the aged cynic that was before me. She was entrusting me and Gaara the future of our villages, so we, in turn our generation, will learn from the mistakes of the older ones and even our own, I guess at the time, and in the end we proved her right. This was something that had an effect on some of the Amazons, namely Hippolyta, as she had not forgotten what she had learned of Gaara's life of being turned into a Jinchuriki, and how like Naruto was treated as a monster but had never been able to find others until much later in life. It was in a sense Naruto who helped him awaken from his own personal hell and become the leader of his own hidden village and change the views of others when it concerned him. Thus it was a good thing to see that in the end, Gaara learned he was never truly alone. After the funeral and their plan to return back to Konoha, they witnessed Gaara and Naruto shake hands, and though no longer a Jinchuriki, his meeting with Sai, which was hardly one would consider cordial due to Sai being a follower of Danzo and his calling of Sasuke as a traitor, though in hindsight, one could not fault Sai's words due to the actions of Sasuke recently, and the mission to meet Sasori's spy using the salvaged puppet used by the now confirmed slain Akatsuki member as cover for Yamato. Only for the spy to be Kabuto himself. it was also not long before it was revealed that both Kabuto and Orochimaru had planned to slay Sasori and were a bit surprised to see that instead of the former Suna Shinobi, it was the Konoha ninja, even more so to see Sai, Sakura and Naruto with them. However, this was where things went downhill as Orochimaru decided to goad Naruto and Sasuke as Naruto awakened the two-tailed state in the same manner as when he faced Deidara. But this quickly escalated to the three-tailed state even though the images were from his memories. The power that was imbued in the memories filtered through to be felt by the Amazons. By Hera. Hippolyta spoke as the power she felt flowed through the room due to the memories Naruto had. And the power was vile and evil indeed, and to know that somehow the young man before her in his past life held such dark power was rather disconcerting. However, she kept in mind that the power he was using was from the time that his bijou partner Kurama hated humans. The same sentiment was in both Diana and Donna as well while they watched the battle play out. And it was not long before Naruto's memories showed his transforming into the four-tailed state when he faced Orochimaru again, and the renegade Sannin taunted him when it concerned Sasuke only added fuel to the fire. The sight of what Naruto could unleash in such a state was shocking to the Amazons, and some of them looked at him warily, something he expected considering what they knew of him already. It was nearing the end of the fight that Yamato, using his powers and the necklace, saved Naruto from his berserker state when he accidentally injured Sakura. The Amazons also witnessed the revelation of Sai's mission concerning Sasuke, and after they infiltrated the base, they finally had the meeting with Sasuke and the aftermath when Sasuke showed that just like them, he had indeed grown stronger, thus he knew that he needed to ramp up his own abilities further. Sadly though, Jiraiya had a matter of his own deal with. But he replied that this was the right time for Kakashi to do his part in training him. His training to master his wind element to curb his use of Kurama's powers as well as other jutsu to help him in battle was soon shown to them as he worked with Kakashi and Yamato. Here it was Kakashi who showed Naruto his affinity and how it could be fused with the Rasengan to increase its power and the hidden secret of the Kage Bunshin. The training was difficult and certainly not something that could be done even with the Kage Bunshin easily, namely since Kurama would routinely try to hijack the Kage Bunshin. Thus Yamato was nearby to restrain the bijou when that happened. It was when he met fellow wind user Asuma Sarutobi did he improve his training in the use of his element using what the man told him when it concerned the use of wind. The battle with the Akatsuki zombie duo Haiden and Kakuzu however cut his training short as he moved to assist them. But that same battle was where he would cement himself into the hero he would become, and it was here where they would see his use of the Rasen Shuriken in the first stage of its creation, helping end the threat of the zombie duo and avenging the death of the one who taught him how to utilize his wind chakra, Jonin Asuma Sarutobi. But hearing that the Rasen Shuriken was actually damaging Naruto at the same time was disconcerting despite the destructive power it had, so he needed to find a way to overcome this stumbling block or learn another method of combat and new jutsu. This was soon followed by his encounter with Isabu as well as Guren once he had fully recovered from the effects of his injuries and learning collaboration jutsu from Jiraiya before Jiraiya would lose his life in battle with Nagato and Konan. The battles between his combined team and the crystal user and her own unit was a bit of an eye-opener to the Amazons. Namely to see how Naruto soon managed to change a once loyal follower of Orochimaru to being someone who showed compassion and a desire to redeem herself for taking the life of the mother of the child she now saw, as someone she would risk her very life to save. Of course along the way the Amazons also saw through the effects of the mist Isabu used, Naruto's still lingering issues, namely dealing with trying to still find and redeem Sasuke and stop him from becoming lost into the darkness. In the end however, not only had they been able to save the young man Yukimaru but helped Guren, Yukimaru, and Gozu escape and eventually find their own path in life. Though Naruto would later learn that the Anbu who were doing the sealing were slain by Deidara and Obito and thus explained Isabu's capture. These various events in the eyes of the Amazons would shape this man, and it was clear that Naruto was taking in those memories well himself, and it seemed to be helping in some way towards his own situation. That was possible since he seemed to be more whole looking at the memories before him. The pursuit of Itachi which fails as he was prevented by Obito was soon, though it seemed that the meeting resulted in a conversation of importance. However, the Amazons were disgusted when one of the crows used by Itachi actually dove into his mouth and he was forced to swallow it. Philippus was the one who spoke on that with an abject look of disgust on her face. What in the name of Hera was that? Naruto just knew that this was going to be hard to explain. Let's just say, that disgusting events aside, that would come in handy, but rest assured, I don't have that bird in me anymore, and keep in mind you are only seeing the events from my memories. I had to be the to swallow it, no one else, so if it was disgusting for you, imagine how it felt for me. This was soon followed by him meeting Kabuto again, and the near recovery of Sasuke had it not been for interference from Obito. In the end they were delayed long enough for Sasuke to finally kill Itachi, and in the end the trail went cold, much to Naruto's frustration. But it was not long however that a new mission came up, and this had to focus on him dealing with fellow Bijou and Jinchuriki Saiken and Utakata, along with Hataru, who to the disgust of the Amazons had carried in her a powerful kenjutsu weapon that could be amounted to a massive fireball of equally massive destructive potential. They were shocked that Hataru willingly accepted the kenjutsu to save her clan from destruction, and it was revealed that only her grandfather could safely extract the kenjutsu from her. Her initial refusal was hard to swallow until Utakata convinced her that saving her clan with such a destructive weapon was a disaster in the making. Sadly, the one who could extract the kenjutsu was the leader of the bandits who had attacked Hataru in the first place. In the end, despite the activation of the jutsu and the potential death of Hataru, it had been prevented by both Jinchuriki, and Hataru was free of the kenjutsu, and Utakata decides to finally be Hataru's sensei. Sadly, before it could happen, Utakata was captured and defeated by Pain himself and could not be there for Hataru in the end, and died when Saiken was taken from him. Naruto eventually revealed to the Amazons that Hataru was heartbroken after the wart but remained strong for Utakata's sake, and eventually found a master to train her and soon bring her clan back slowly from extinction. The end of that mission was merely the beginning for Naruto's path in life, as he now had to undertake the training to master Sage Mode after his sadness to learn the death of Jiraiya at the hands of Pain/Nagato. Once he returned to Konoha, apparently Jiraiya had taken a high-risk mission into Amigakure, as it had been rumored to be the HQ of the leaders of Akatsuki. It turned out the information was right, but it had gotten Jiraiya killed, as he heard it from the one Naruto explained to be Pa-Toad. They saw how angry and despondent the blonde was at the news of Jiraiya's death, and even raged against Tsunade for sending Jiraiya on a suicide mission such as that, and how it had nearly resulted in him going after Pain himself, even though at the time he was told that as he would be killed. They watched as he was seemingly drained of the will to fight, how he had recalled the good times he had with the man, minus the headaches he had trying to keep the man from raiding his wallet and being a pervert to be sure. Still, they saw that it was Shikamaru who reminded him of the duty they all had and his own promise to his own deceased sensei. He had a duty to Jiraiya to make the perverted ninja's belief in peace a reality, so he must not stay here forever. And seeing his village and recalling everything he had accomplished thus far, that allowed the blonde to regain his fighting spirit. Thus he went to train on Mount Myobokuzen alongside the two toads who trained Jiraiya in the use of senjutsu. Hippolyta soon spoke as she was curious of this senjutsu, and despite seeing a number of times now, the sight of these sentient and sapient toads was still interesting, since if it had not been for the clothes, hair, and actions, they would have easily passed for ordinary animals. What was this senjutsu that you had to learn with these toad summons? Naruto decided to explain some of the details of senjutsu, and naturally the idea of summoning the energy of the natural world into one's self to gain a great deal of power into one's self was interesting to the Amazons. Naturally he explained that this could not be done for them, since in order to learn senjutsu one had to learn from those who were highly attuned with nature, and he learned it in Mount Myobokuzen and from the toads who called it home, which meant it was Gamabunta's home too. He also mentioned the high risk of learning it and getting the control and chakra ratios wrong, namely seeing the toad statues and how former students of the senjutsu arts among the toads died as humans and were turned into toads of considerable size and were now pure stone. Seeing the sheer number of the statues gave the Amazons a very accurate idea how difficult the training truly was. They also saw the risk Naruto had to take, since there had been a number of occasions that he was turning into a toad in the training with the oil. However, they did find it somewhat humorous when they saw the male toad sage using the cane to whack the natural energy out of Naruto when he was losing it, and it happened a lot of times too. Naruto's reactions to being turned into a piñata were amusing to them. The same could not be said for Naruto, who gave a groan of annoyance at the memory of that event. Geez, this I remember, and not with that much fondness. That however was topped when he was showing the memories of him eating the food of the toads, which were naturally grubs. caterpillars, moths, and all manner of insects. While the women here were hardly squeamish, the idea of eating those did not exactly sit well with them. They looked at Naruto, who sighed in regards to the fact that he was eating them. Okay, yes, it is disgusting, but some things have to be made clear. 1. It was the only food they had. 2. It would be rude for me to turn them down since they are my trainers. And 3. You have to keep in mind you're just looking at the memories I had. I'm the one who ate them, remember? They had to give him that, and soon they witnessed him successfully master Sage Mode, though he had to find a solution of his own when he could not sync with Ma or Pa Toad due to Kurama being around. As his training continued, it was not long however that he was informed that Konoha was under attack, and not by regular forces either but Akatsuki itself. They had finally come to take him, and this time, it was the pair of Nagato and Konan who led the assault. By the time he arrived, the village had been decimated. A massive crater was there and a large number of ninja and civilians had been badly injured, and others including Kakashi and Shizune had been killed. Naruto managed to save Tsunade in time by smashing his massive Rasengan on the attacking Pain body, and now was ready to settle accounts with the man before him. His battle with Pain/Nagato after Konoha is flattened by the man was one of the most interesting battles they had ever seen, since he had made very intelligent use of his abilities. Even more so when he unleashed the now fully completed Rasen Shuriken into battle, unlike the first version that was for close combat and more like a double-edged sword. This new variant was throwable and could expand rapidly and sliced anything in its reach into literal slivers. The technique was quite impressive by the standards of the Amazons, and its deadly effects were not the least bit lost on his foes. However, even though he had overcome the limitations of Senjutsu his way, he still had to deal with the fact that he was fighting someone with the Rinnegan and had several others like him with the same set of eyes. His reaction to the supposed death of Hinata and the loss of Kakashi, many of his fellow ninja and friends, and Fukasaku, and how he was nearly forced to unleash Kurama until his father came to stop him. Naruto was confused at first until he realized that the fourth was his father. Their meeting did not start well as Naruto punched his father, demanding why he had Kurama inside of him, as IoT had made his life hell, and why as a father he did that to him. In answer to that, Minato revealed that he had not done so lightly and did so in order to face the masked man who was in truth the one who had been the cause of the release of Kurama. Since at the time neither Minato nor Naruto knew it to be Obito, he also had faith that his son with Kushina would be able to handle the burden he placed on him, for if not he would have done otherwise, and told Naruto that he had faith he could end the cycle of hatred that was the root cause of so many deaths, even that of his sensei and Naruto's godfather. It was this faith placed on him by his father even when he doubted he could do it, that gave him the courage and the will to fight, and how he would eventually defeat Pain and end the cycle after his father reinforced the seal. He soon faced Pain/Nagato, and despite Nagato's attempts to control him, Naruto could not be cowed, but instead of attacking Nagato, even if his hatred and anger demanded to be satisfied, he decided to hear Nagato out. The Amazons watched the scene play out between Naruto and Nagato as well as Konan, as the two former students of the same master faced one another, as Nagato told the blonde of his own history and how he knew of Jiraiya and what led to his fall, namely the interference of Danzo and his root Anbu. The speech between the two on how peace could be achieved was surprising. Even more so when they saw Naruto stating that even if he could never forgive Nagato for slaying Jiraiya, his sensei Kakashi, and causing so much death, he would not kill him for the sake of the future. And because it would only allow the cycle to continue with no true end in sight. It was impressive to their eyes, some not so much, but all could not help but be deep in witnessing the results, as Nagato, using what life and power he had left, had brought the souls of all the people he and his forces had slain back to life, all because of what he felt Naruto represented. A future that would indeed bring an end to the pain, misery and more that had claimed so many lives, including his own family and in effect Yahiko as well. They also heard his last words on what hatred truly was and what it did to people, and that hatred and war are merely two parts of the same dark coin. That was the true enemy Naruto had to defeat if he wanted to make Jiraiya's dream and that of the sage come true, but he had faith that his fellow student would indeed make it happen, that the cycle of hatred and more would end. Interesting, Philippus commented as she looked at the result. When it seemed that only tragedy and death would reign at the aftermath, those who died were brought back from the dead by the life of the very same man who killed them from before. Diana was awed as well, seeing as how Naruto, despite the anger and grief he felt, had managed to accomplish this through words alone. It took a great deal of mental will and spirit to do that, and it was something that she had to admire. Artemis was in some ways impressed by the battle, as she, despite her still present dislike for men, had to admire the fighting style, tenacity and adaptability the blonde displayed against such a unique and undeniably deadly foe. Artemis had absolute confidence in herself as an Amazon, pride as well. But even she had to admit that fighting someone of Pain/Nagato's powers and undeniable talent and powers was a risky situation. She was not the only Amazon to think that, as Philippus, Hippolyta, and Diana were also of the same mind, having witnessed the battle from start to finish. The end result of the battle was seen as Conan took the bodies of Nagato and Yahiko in coffins made of paper and giving a bouquet of flowers made from paper. There she promised that she as well as Aim were through with Akatsuki, and that she along with they were allies of Naruto now and they would stand with him. He now carried the dream of Yahiko, Nagato, and Jiraiya for a new and peaceful world, and she would fight to make sure that the dream became a reality. The Amazons witnessed how the villagers had changed their views of Naruto, as they now considered him a hero for what he had done, even to the point of considering him Hokage material, a vast change from what they had done in the past. They saw the cheers given by the people of Konoha, none more louder than the families who had before lost their sons, daughters, husbands, mothers, wives, uncles, and aunts. The same could be said for the cheers and smiles given by Naruto's friends and allies, and there on the faces of Iruka and Kakashi was pride and respect for what Naruto had done. It was indeed a great change to the time when many of these same people used to insult the young man, and to see it happen was something that had to be respected in their society. Even more so when they saw that it was genuine. It was not long, however, that the news came to Konoha of the capture of Killer Bee, the adopted brother of the Raikage, and who was also a Jinchuriki like Naruto, the leader of Kyomogakure. Took great offense to the kidnapping, as it followed the loss of another Jinchuriki, Yujito Ni, who was also of Kyomo. They were not the only ones, as Naruto later had an altercation with one of the messengers, that being Karui herself. Naruto naturally explained to the assembled women that Karui was a student of Bee along with Omoi and Samui, and thus they took Bee's kidnapping personally. More so the dark-skinned red-haired Kunoichi. Thankfully, despite being attacked by the fiery-tempered woman, he was helped by Sai, Sakura, and Omoi, who warned his teammate to calm down, with Samui eventually revealing that he was the one who had dealt with Pain. After some time, the blonde reeled in shock at the fact that Sasuke was now a wanted criminal and had a serious bounty on his head and orders for him to be killed on sight, even more for all Kyomo ninja nearby, due to the fact he kidnapped Bee, and many knew the fate of the previously kidnapped Yujito was in a sense a major hurdle for Naruto to overcome if he was to accomplish the dreams of Jiraiya, as well as proving himself worthy of the faith his father Minato placed on him. His travels to the Land of Iron and his failure to try and ask for clemency in regards to Sasuke too, along with the fact that even among his own fellow ninja some were thinking of ending Sasuke's life. His discovery of the sage and the truth behind the Uchiha clan massacre from none other than Obito Uchiha himself, and how he tried to plead for Sasuke to be given clemency, and how he had hyperventilated from what he learned, and eventually meeting Sasuke again after Sasuke had killed Danzo, critically wounded Karen, and had nearly slain Sakura. The meeting between was hard for Naruto, and the clash between them so mirroring the past confrontation years ago, but this time, their combat skills had improved well enough that they were a fairly even match. As soon as it was over, Naruto knew that he would have to stop running and somehow find a way to take Kurama's power and use it without being corrupted by the Biju's intense hatred for humans. A tall order, if there ever was one. That meant a trip to the Land of Lightning to train for what would be his hardest task to date, and that required a very long voyage of sorts. However, before this could occur, Naruto had his own issues to deal with one of them including the meeting with a kunoichi from the hidden village of Nadeshiko. It was here that Naruto finally realized something when he combed the memory. Well, this is interesting. It seems that now that I think about it, there is a village in my home world that's quite like your own here, our world's version of the Amazons, I guess. That got the attention of the Amazons themselves as Hippolyta spoke to him. What do you mean by that? Well, the hidden village of Nadeshiko is the only village in the elemental nations I know of that has its entire ninja population comprised entirely of kunoichi, basically an all-female ninja army. Naruto soon brought up images of the kunoichi in question when he had been allowed to visit the village once when the war ended, even though there was indeed peace. Splinter groups and whatnot were always coming out, so no ninja village would rest in training until they were absolutely certain that the peace so many had fought and died for was not tainted again. Nadeshiko was no exception and naturally continued to produce exceptionally skilled and gifted kunoichi even in peacetime, since there would always be threats. And not from bandits either, as Shin Uchiha had proven long ago, though that fake Uchiha was already dealt with. The Amazons were certainly interested as they saw how the women trained in their arts of war, and it was actually quite surprising to learn that somewhere beyond their world and reality, as it were, there were women who were warriors like them. Of course they did keep in mind that this was in a different world, and Diana, being the curious one, asked, "What makes us different from them?" "Well, unlike you, I guess the kunoichi of Nadeshiko are not immortal or anything. They do age and die, so naturally to keep their village alive, they usually go look for a man to have children with. But being a completely matriarchal society and a warrior one, they don't just pick any man off the street, nope, they go for the strongest and the most capable shinobi they find. Once they do find one, said kunoichi challenges him to a duel to the death for the right of marriage. If the shinobi wins in battle, then the kunoichi is obligated to take him back to said village and accept him as a husband. If he loses, well, he might as well pray for a quick death." The Amazons looked at one another in surprise, as well as the images, along with the priestesses, as Donna spoke. "So if the male ninja loses, he loses his life?" "Pretty much, and like I said, kunoichi in that village are really picky. If the man ain't up to their standard as a husband, then they ignore him, or kill him if he gets too uppity, I suppose." Well, they are not blessed with immortality and are of another world, so I guess we cannot fault them, though I am curious, why did you mention them?" Naruto smiled and soon explained that prior to meeting the pervy sage, Jiraiya had apparently gotten into an altercation with the kunoichi and had been tracked down for a day or two by one of them. And not just anyone, but the leader of the village herself, and while aware of Jiraiya's less than pure reputation, was also aware of him being a sannin and thus challenged him to the duel. They apparently fought to a draw, and eventually they agreed that it would be their students who would take to the field, though it was not going to be Naruto's father, as he had been married to Naruto's mom at the time. Needless to say, I eventually met the student of the kunoichi, and she was also head of their village as well, Shizuka, if I recall it right. Of course, at the time I was not exactly in the mood to marry anyone, and I did learn that despite what I saw before, Shizuka was originally against the law itself. That got some raised eyebrows, as he expected, and it was Donna who ventured the question. Why was she against it? I learned from her attendant Tokiwa, who herself is a fierce but kind-hearted kunoichi, that in the past Shizuka fell in love with a merchant. A complete taboo, as it is only shinobi that Nadeshiko kunoichi are supposed to go after. She opposed the law as much as he did, however, he was killed and it broke Shizuka's heart. Not really sure if this is true or not, since it happened long before my time, but it was believed that despite her being the next in line to rule her village, some of her fellow kunoichi may have had a hand in her beloved's death due to the taboo. Since then, she, in Tokiwa's view, punished herself for what happened by pushing herself to the extreme to become the most deadly of her village, which was proven true ever since. Naruto soon revealed Shizuka as he recalled her, and also Tokiwa, and how despite him winning and later saving her from a more than annoying suitor, refused to marry her, and encouraged her to change the law. And it appeared to have worked, as Naruto explained how later on, after the war, he learned that Shizuka had indeed found love again and led the village. Even more so when a number of her own people took part in the war alongside all the other villages. Naruto also revealed many more of his adventures after the 5 Kage summit. This included facing a clone of himself created disgustingly enough by chakra snakes created by Kabuto that he swallowed accidentally when in combat with the ninja who had been the one who massacred the people of an entire village using the ninja he brought back using Edo Tenshi, including some slain Konoha ninja. The reason was for the whole a massive source of water with amazingly unique properties due to the Ama no Hoko, an ancient device of immense power that could affect weather and more. The clone was already in the four-tailed state, and even Kabuto could not control it as it rampaged all over the place. The young girl Mina was the one who was able to see the snakes and force them out. The clone nearly kills the children and their caretaker had it not been for Guy and Rock Lee. The battles ended with the defeat of the clone despite it had absorbed enough power from the Aim no Hoko and transformed into a massive hybrid of Kurama and a separant-like entity and Naruto as well as the others. Bidding farewell to the new family Mina was now part of. Another dealt with bringing justice to the dead of an island village ravaged and burned to the ground by pirates, and despite being bested briefly by the pirate leader who was no slouch in a fight, Naruto succeeded and avenged the islanders who died because of the man's great and brutal nature. Another dealt with the ghost of a young sailor who was honor-bound to stay until the monster that bucklered his crew members and him was defeated. Naruto and the others did just that and let the man rest in peace. This helped Naruto eventually overcome his fear of ghosts, though not by much. Another was helping prevent an incident that would have sparked war between Iwa and Kiri due to an old incident that led to a reneged ninja of Kiri planning to kill the messenger of Iwa, who sadly enough was the granddaughter of the Kaguya of the village in question. But soon the images of his memories shifted to show the soon-to-come meeting with yet another person who would change his life once they came to the land of lightning. And this was none other than Killer Bee, who apparently had escaped the kidnapping attempt and was alive now, though was under orders from his brother to stay hidden. They witnessed his meeting with Killer Bee and Gyuki and how they were placed aside on an island to protect them, not just any island though but a land mass on the back of a massive turtle which surprised the Amazons since it was similar to the size of the Leviathans that they knew of. And yet it was here that he would eventually face his destiny and train to master the power of Kurama, though it took a while as Killer Bee was not that forthcoming on whether he would train him or not. But after getting to know one another, it was not long before Bee consented to help Naruto gain control of his bijou, but first he had to surpass the darkness in his own heart in the Falls of Truth. It did not end that Wealth Guff, as his dark half, was as powerful as him and knew all of his tricks. He would face the inner hatred he had once more, and after being encouraged by Motoi and his own thoughts on both Bee and Gaara as well as how far he had come even since leaving the academy, he won and took in his hatred and healed himself of it. It was also here that he learned that Bee had also done the exact same thing he was when he was ready. And it was here that Naruto learned that Bee's own cousin had been the previous Jinchuriki but had died when his bijou, Gyuki, went rampant and had also killed Motoi's father. Yet despite this, Motoi and Bee became friends just as Bee had with Gyuki. He would win and end the hatred in himself to finally face Kurama after he unlocked the seal. It was in many ways a very dangerous move, as Kurama had been waiting for this very moment, and soon the battle between Naruto and Kurama would begin. It was a battle that had been a long time coming in the viewpoint of the all-female audience. The two clashed fast and hard, yet even with the brief assistance of Gyuki and Bee, Kurama lived up to his power and name as the strongest of the bijou, even in a state where he was only at half power. The bijou's energy was immense and it was not going down without a fight, even trying to infect Naruto once more with its hatred of humanity. They saw the battle and how when it seemed he would fail, Kushina appeared and helped him win. And here she spoke of the true events of the night and how she met his father and how she grew to love Minato and thanked Naruto for being her son and letting them be his parents before fading into the afterlife. It was here as well that Naruto inherited his first chakra cloak free of the taint of Kurama's hatred, and the Amazons were quick to sense a vast difference from the cloaks that Naruto had in the past. Not just a visual difference, this energy was pure, clean, demonic, yet free of evil, in a sense almost divine. That fact alone was shocking and interesting to the Amazons, as the energy emanating from the memories in this part of Naruto's life was also empowering to a degree. It was Diana who was the most affected, however, as she could not help but feel amazement at the power being released by Naruto in this form, and Dana soon spoke. So this is the chakra cloak free of your bijou's hatred? Yes, pretty neat, Hadanaheim. Of course it does have drawbacks. Oh. Yep, at the time, the chakra I took from Kurama was all I could get, and in exchange, Kurama ate my chakra, so I could not use it too often, too much, and I dropped dead. He soon would fight beside Bee to free themselves and join the war once he learned of the truth. They saw him speak to Kurama and how he resolved to heal it of its hatred for humans, much to Kurama's previous annoyance. This was something that also impressed Hippolyta as well as Diana and Dana. Even Artemis gave a nod of recognition for Naruto's actions, no matter how seemingly foolish it was. The fact that he was willing to try and make peace and become allies with the being that in respect had been the reason his entire life had been in shambles ever since he was old enough. Ah, those were the days. Naruto could not help but comment on that memory as he recalled that little chat with Kurama prior to him and the others going off to war. His meeting with A and Tsunade and how he and B finally gained approval to fight, his meeting with the revived Itachi and Nagato, the resulting battle and how he and his Kage Bunshin would face many high-profile foes in battle, the reincarnated Sound 4, the third Raikage, Tatewaki, numerous White Zetsu, Yoda, and eventually a reincarnated Madara Uchiha who had begun to show his power and how it was the Kage Meiterumi, Inoki, Gaara, and Tsunade who would fight Madara and he would deal with Obito. They witnessed the full entirety of the Fourth Shinobi War play out as Naruto and be moved out after escaping the island to come to the aid of the now combined shinobi of all the hidden villages. And the war was indeed brutal as Obito and Kabuto had summoned not merely the White Zetsu forces but used the Edo Tensei to summon slain ninja back to the battlefield. And these were not just merely ninja from all the villages and even non-ninja, they were friends, lovers, husbands, wives, sons, daughter, nephews, nieces, aunts, uncles, enemies, criminals, traitors, heroes all. Of them, none were left to chance by Obito and Kabuto as their plans played out, and those brought back were not merely mindless zombies, but had retained all their skills, techniques, and abilities, making them living weapons, devoid of free will once they were forced by the summoner to go and attack the summoner's enemies. It was a horrible idea to be forced to face those you loved and knew who died long ago before you and now merely slaves to the will of such a foe. Diana was quite taken aback by the sight of those who had died being revived against their personal wish to remain dead, only to be reduced into weaponized puppets by Kabuto. Hippolyta was frowning darkly as she recalled the time she had fought Hades long ago when he had finally started his rebellion against his brother Zeus. Hades had no hesitation in using the souls of her own Amazon kindred to attack them before, so naturally she hated the sight of what the Edo Tensei had done to the dead. Alexa herself was disgusted and spoke. How could someone do such a thing to the dead? Naruto said nothing at first but replied, "That is why the jutsu is considered to be the highest form of defilement of the dead where I come from. It was meant to break the will of one's enemies by forcing them to fight the people who they loved long ago and to instill despair. On the other side, one now had an immortal army of warriors who would never relent until all are dead before them. Not one of the Amazons refused the truth there. The battles that raged between the now unified shinobi and kunoichi of all the hidden villages was fierce and undeniably bloody and would last for days and pit them against all the revived members of Akatsuki, other revived ninja who had died in times past, the White Zetsu army as well as Obito who did not hesitate in enacting the plan, and later it was revealed that the White Zetsu could actually copy ninja in all aspects except memory, and this allowed them to cause panic and confusion in the ranks of the alliance. Naruto would then dispatch hordes of his Kage Bunshin despite the risks to himself in order to aid in the fighting with the various forces. It would be here that he would prove himself even more in the field of battle, even if some of the fights were with Kage Bunshin only. One such battle resulted in him facing the now reanimated Sound 5, Kimimaro, Jugo, Yukon and Sakon, as well as Kadamaru and Taiyuya. All five were driven by the hatred of defeat and had captured the very same allies Naruto had with him when he pursued Sasuke all those years ago. He aided Shikamaru, Neji, Rock Lee, Chuji, Kiba, and Akamaru in defeating them and soon moved to more battles, though not all of the resurrected ninja or samurai were enemies. One such person was Yoda, a previous experiment of Orochimaru in his plan to use the Edo Tenchi who had died long ago but had come to Konoha in secret and had met Naruto and his generation of ninja when they were still kids. Though initially not meeting on the best of circumstances, he and Yoda became friends, though Yoda's powers to manipulate the weather soon got the attention of the ANBU. Yoda eventually was taken away despite their efforts and their memories erased of him. Meeting him again was a shock to Naruto, but eventually Yoda revealed that he had been dead long ago. But even in those moments, he was utterly pleased that even for one such as him, friendship was possible, so he willingly destroyed himself, as he was now free and no longer Kabuto's puppet. Another encounter was ironically enough a samurai who had been among his companions on a mission in his youth prior to his training journey with Jiraiya, and he eventually aided in defeating the deadly Raikage. Before and in a way that was both high risk and also very unexpected. but the fact that he had done it either way was truly worthy of note in the eyes of the Amazons, as A was no slouch in a fight and had put many of the ninja and samurai who came at him on the ropes. But the most critical battle was when he and B encountered none other than Itachi Uchiha and Nagato Uzumaki, also brought back from the grave by the Edo Tenshi. It was here that Naruto finally told Itachi that Sasuke learned the truth from Madara/Obito about the massacre, and it was distressing for the now deceased Uchiha, who then asked the blonde to keep this to himself, so that in the end the Uchiha would be redeemed. Sadly, as much as both pairs wished to avoid it, Kabuto soon took control of Itachi and Nagato, and thus they were forced to fight. Things got worse when Nagato was able to take a good portion of B and by extension Gyuki's chakra, and was now fully restored to his full strength, but in that same moment when Itachi used his Sharingan, the crow that Itachi had planted into Naruto when he was alive came out from his mouth, much to the disgust of the Amazons and Naruto, feeling his body react to the now recovered memory experience. Yep, just seeing that again makes my stomach hurt. In that moment, however, Itachi was now freed from Kabuto's control and helped in fighting Nagato alongside Killer B and Naruto. The three succeeded, though Nagate was not unhappy and promised Naruto to send a good word to their sensei in the afterlife, and did so with a smile. Something that surprised Naruto, along with the humor the reanimated man had, something he had lost ever since the death of Yahiko. It was also here that Itachi in his own way contributed to Naruto's growth hero by warning him not to take the path of believing that only he can do things alone, for that was the path Madara walked on, and reminded him that his own father became Hokage by the acknowledgement of his fellow villagers, allies, friends, and loved ones. This would be the last time he would speak to Itachi, as he and B knew they were needed elsewhere. But Obito was soon aware that both Naruto and B were loose and quickly moved to intercept them. But he was hardly alone here, as he now had reincarnated the slain Jinchuriki, implanted a Sharingan and Rinnegan their eyes to turn them into his own six paths as Nagato did, and infused the Bijou back into them, all under his control. This would lead to a clash between the last two living Jinchuriki and their now reanimated brethren when Naruto and B intercepted Obito and the Jinchuriki in question. They witnessed the titanic battle between the real Naruto and B against the reincarnate Jinchuriki, Yujito ni, Yagura, Rashi, Han, and Utakata. The reincarnated ninja were very powerful indeed in their own right, and the fact that they wielded both the Sharingan and the Rinnegan made the battle all the more difficult. Even with the combined powers of their Bijou and their own prowess, the two living Jinchuriki were still virtually outnumbered. The unique powers of the other reanimated Jinchuriki were not the only problem, as they soon transformed to their chakra cloaks, which were more in line with that of Naruto's old one and B's as well. And even with the aid of Kakashi and Guy, they were losing until Naruto was caught by the now fully transformed Son Goku. He, however, actually managed to delve into the mind of the resurrected Jinchuriki and finally spoke to Son Goku himself and resolved to prove himself to the Bijou by freeing it from Obito's control and become friends with his own Bijou, as he was inspired by the friendship between B and Gyuki. This was met by amusement by Son Goku, and it was here that Naruto finally knew Kurama's name, yet the Bijou saw how serious the blonde was and agreed. He won, and this coupled with his honest desire to truly free him and not merely release him from Obito's control, convinced not just Son Goku of Naruto's purity and honesty to give him a portion of his power, but finally earned the trust of Kurama, who willingly allowed him to use his full power without him trying to take Naruto's life. The result of this change was seen as his chakra cloak changed into something. Naruto smiled a bit at remembering as Kurama and him spoke to one another about the nature of them being allies and friends. As soon as this happened, Naruto summoned a massive avatar of Kurama and engaged the other Bijou before managing to restrain them and break the control rods used by Obito to control them. In this moment, the Amazons soon witnessed his meeting with the other Bijou and their Jinchuriki. Here they revealed themselves to him and what had happened in the one place that Obito could not enter, and how they gave him portions of their power, believing that perhaps he would be the one their father the sage spoke of who would show them the truth path to power before they were sealed. And despite the fact that the Bijou were once more absorbed by the Shinju, the blonde and his allies soon moved to fight Obito, and the women soon saw how he and the others finally revealed Obito to the world. Even more so for those who knew Obito the most, being none other than Kakashi and Guy, who were there in the battle. They saw the battle with Madara and Obito and how many times Naruto fought not with thirst and power alone but philosophy and ideals against the nihilistic views of the two Uchiha, and also rekindled his own sensei's will to fight when it had been diminished by the revelation that Obito was alive and had been before him all this time. They saw how the Ten Tails finally woke up and how it took the full might of the reunited Shinobi Alliance forces to face it and Niji's death to defend Naruto when it targeted the blonde ninja, and there was no time for anyone but him to reach him. They witnessed the last conversation between the two friends as Niji passed on and his seal placed away the Byakugan Naruto's near fall had it not been for Hinata, and how he finally passed his power and that of Kurama into all of the ninja and samurai. Even then it was a battle that had no clear victor, as Naruto and the Shinobi Alliance were facing the powers of not just the Shinju but Obito and Madara, who were all still powerful indeed. The timely arrival of Naruto's reincarnated father Minato, Tobirama, Hashirama, and Hiruzen, along with Sasuke, and his own team along with Orochimaru, as well as the now recovered current Kage Meiterumi, Inoki, Tsunade, B, and Gaara. They saw Sakura, Sasuke, and Naruto fight once more, and how after many intense clashes against the now ten-tail empowered Obito, and how Naruto rallied the dispirited allied forces with undying determination to end this war and bring a future to all. In the end they witnessed Naruto and Sasuke finally fuse the chakra avatar of Kurama with the Susanoo and had their companions ride on the tails of the collaborated form while they wielded Rasengan in their hands, shattering Obito's defense and also using the sword of Susanoo to finally cut through Obito and then yank out the other tailed beasts. In that effect, they finally defeated Obito, who was forced to break free thanks to Naruto, who reminded him of his old self. It was one of the most interesting conversations the Amazons had ever seen and heard, as Naruto and Obito faced one another and fought with not just fists but ideals and beliefs. And many of the Amazons found themselves glued in on how this would end, several of them being the most critical of all. Hippolyta took great notice of how the conversations and images played out and how Naruto seemed intent to actually change the views of this man, to remember who he once was and stop this madness. It was impressive in her mind considering how much of a hand Obito had for making Naruto's life very painful and difficult. The fact it was Obito who had in effect killed Naruto's mother and father and in turn made him not only an orphan and a hated pariah in his own home was also painful to see, and yet despite knowing all this and how much of a hand Obito had in ruining lives, not merely his but Sasuke's as well, Naruto still sought to redeem the man. To seek to redeem one who had fallen so far, the one who helped murder his own parents and made him a pariah of his own home village for all his life. I cannot deny that it takes great courage and will to do so, and yet he has it in great amounts. It was here that Kakashi and Minato spoke to Obito on their own mistakes and how Obito decided to make up for his actions and use the same jutsu Nagato used, but it was here that things took a turn for the worst, as Black Zetsu took over Obito's body and forced him to use the jutsu on one target. They soon saw the battle continue with a now fully revived Madara, who despite losing his own eyes had planned for this from the start in his own way and with his actions managed to take back into the statue the Bijou along with young Kurama, leaving Naruto in a state of near death. The situation grew even more dire as Sasuke himself had soon been attacked by Madara in a fatal manner, much to the disgust of Tobirama who witnessed it, until Obito managed to help infuse the Yin half of Kurama into Naruto as his way to make up for his fall into darkness while they were in the Kamui dimension. Here the Amazons witnessed Naruto's meeting with Hagoromo and the passing on of the sage's power into Naruto and the other into Sasuke as he revealed the history between the ancestors of the Senju and the Uchiha, and his worry that in doing what he has, Madara has only played into allowing a greater tragedy. He also pointed out that in his view, which was already seen to be true, one who had so much power, despite their best intentions, would eventually become corrupted by the power if it is left unchecked, and it was with them on how to change things forever. It was here that the two were informed of them being the reincarnations of Bapth Indra and Azura. He eventually infused his powers into them, and granted them a level of power few could expect, as Naruto gained the Yang Chakra of the Sage with the Mark of the Sun, and Sasuke gaining the Rinnegan and the Tin Chakra. The women saw them fight Madara once again, though they witnessed in the end of the use of the infinite Tsukuyomi after Madara sealed the Shinju into himself to stand against the new might of the two ninja. But that move proved to be a serious mistake on his part due to the actions of Black Zetsu in betraying Madara and using him to revive none other than Kaguya herself, and in turn revealing that this had been her plan all along. The sight of Madara being consumed and transformed to bring back Kaguya was disgusting to everyone, even more so Naruto, as he saw this happen right in front of him while the Amazons only saw the aftermath when he saw it. The power that came from Kaguya as she finally appeared from the remains of Madara was as potent in the senses of the Amazons as when they saw her before, so even though it was the second time this happened, it was still hard for them to picture the sheer level of power she had. She had the power that could easily place her as a goddess. She soon proved herself to be a deadly foe, and it was here that Black Zetsu revealed its true origins. Naruto recalled it well, and thus the speech made by Black Zetsu as it cackled in triumph at bringing Kaguya back was spoken in full clarity. There it revealed that it had secretly been on Earth, watching over Indra and Azura. Seeing that Azura was far too much like Hagomoro, he turned to Indra, and over time, using Indra's own beliefs in his power, turned the eldest son against his father and brother, and in turn over time kept himself hidden and twisted the tablet used by Hagomoro to record his past. In effect, it revealed his own mother's plans for chakra and how he had been manipulating everything from behind the scenes until he was able to ensnare Madara without the Uchiha clan leader knowing it. In turn, revealing that all of the tragedy, pain, sacrifice, bloodshed, and suffering were all for Black Zetsu to revive his mother, Kaguya, who would bring all chakra under her tyrannical rule. It was Black Zetsu who had helped in corrupting the arrogant Indra and had orchestrated all of the things to do this, uncaring for the lives lost in the plan. This enraged the shinobi, and even the Amazons found such an idea utterly disgusting. Kaguya displayed her immense powers over the world and how she would become the deadliest enemy the team and Kakashi would ever face, as she had the literal power of a goddess, a dark goddess. The fact that she was able to alter the realm around her with such speed and also wield the power to send the two ninja sliding away even with their newfound powers simply by using her hair as a whip spoke highly of Kaguya's power as the progenitor of chakra, and the fact that she could use her bones as weapons like Kimimaro but of such a higher level as it could kill anyone with a single wound was horrifying. The thing that disturbed them the most was how she was willing to kill both Sasuke and Naruto, even though she shed some tears for them as they resembled her own sons. Yet it was clear her lust for power and her abject hatred for the fact they carried the chakra that she felt was hers by right, overrode any humanity she had in her. Hippolyta looked at the white-haired and horned woman with great wariness and also disgust, well aware of how far the once benevolent woman had fallen in the grip of her power. Her once noble intentions and love for humanity as well for her sons overridden by the lust for power and her belief only she alone was worthy. The same could be said for her daughters Diana and Donna as they looked at Kaguya, whose tears did not fool her, even though there was sadness. There was also hatred in them, so there was no doubt in both sisters' minds that any semblance of maternal compassion had been burned out of the woman. But this did not deter Naruto or Sasuke, as well as Sakura and Kakashi, now all the more aware that she was the true enemy to face. The war between them was intense in the eyes of the various Amazons who witnessed this clash. Kaguya's power as a fighter despite being royalty was not to be underestimated. Even more so when she uses her powers to shift dimensions and using her hair to act like weapons, and the battles she had with Naruto further proved that despite being distracted on occasion, she was not easily duped. Naruto had even used a jutsu to make him and Sasuke resemble her sons at their teen years, which served to distract her. The Amazons were unaware of the fact that Naruto had altered his memories of that event somewhat, as the reverse sexy jutsu he used on Kaguya was far too embarrassing to show. He wanted to make a good impression here, not give the Amazons an extra set of reasons to want to shove a spear into him. Thankfully they were too enthralled by the fight before them to prod him into that level, for which he was eternally thankful. Hippolyta and the other Amazons watched the battle unfold before them, and the blonde queen was impressed by such a stratagem, though also was but unsettled as she felt worry that someone could try that on someone like her by taking the forms of her daughters Diana and Donna to make her lower her guard. They saw the death of Obito, who had done much to save Sasuke even at the cost of his life force, and how he prevented them from losing the other by actually letting himself be stabbed by those bones. They heard Obito's last words to Naruto and how Naruto refused to let Black Zetsu belittle Obito and his sacrifice, and soon they would face Kaguya in an all-or-nothing fight and successfully use the ceiling on her. to deprive her of all her power once more. And as she was once more sealed into the moon as the demon statue, Naruto ensured to end her threat once more by tossing Black Zetsu after her, ironically fulfilling the wish of the dark artificial human to be with his mother forever and preventing him from ever finding ways to bring her back. And here they were soon brought back to their dimension by the combined efforts of all the Kaguya and Hagamoro himself along with all of the Bijou. And when they returned, he was pleased to see Kurama again along with embracing the being with his happy greeting, and soon the other Kaguya left but not he bid farewell to his father, Hiruzen, Hashirama and Tobirama as well as the other Kaguya and also saw the last meeting between Hashirama and Madara as well as some parting words from the Kaguya with Minato wishing his beloved son a happy birthday, ironically showing that the end of the war with Kaguya was on Naruto's turning 17, but it was not long before things changed for the worse even though Kaguya and Black Zetsu were dealt with. The Amazons witnessed the last battle between Naruto and Sasuke when the last of the living Uchiha revealed his plans and how he used his new powers to quickly restrain the tailed beasts. Even though Kurama refused to go down without a fight, the fact he had even subjected Sakura to a powerful genjutsu even when she begged him to stop and end this was telling indeed that he was not going to be reasoned with so easily. This angered the Amazons very much and some were rather vocal about it. Traitorous swine. Bastard, he's only taking himself deeper into the very darkness that twisted so many like him. Naruto said nothing however, he knew what was going to happen next so he had little reason to be angry. They saw the titanic clash ironically enough in the place where it all began, the Valley of the End once more. They saw and heard all of it between the two and how their clash lasted for a day and a half, using all of their power until finally, exhausted and wounded, both stuck with massive force with both their most powerful techniques resulting in both of them losing their dominant forearms, Sasuke his left, and Naruto his right as both spoke before finally sleeping for what would amount for hours. They heard the conversations between the two as they awakened and Sasuke conceding defeat but was moved to tears how far Naruto would go to save him and how they finally mended fences. And in that moment, in a rather unique show, they saw the blood from both wounds form the traditional greeting of teammates in Konoha. And ironically enough the rock both the two were on were the hands of Hashirama and Madara in the same embrace, and in the eyes of the gathered Amazons, they saw the incarnations of Azura and Indra. From the two before them, to Hashirama and Madara, all the way to Azura and Indra make peace and end their centuries-long feud at last. Diana could not help but be moved by this. Even after all this time, after all the torment and the many dangers, the man before her and her sisters still found a way to end not only the darkness in his friend's mind and soul, but bring an end to a feud that was literally centuries in potency, even at such a great cost to himself physically, spiritually, and emotionally. Naruto endured all of it to make peace a reality and to save his friend from the darkness in him, and had done so even at the cost of his arm. So he finally kept his promise to save his friend from himself. Impressive. The same sentiment was in Hippolyta's mind as she recalled what Sasuke had done and also how much damage he had inflicted in his quest to kill his brother Itachi, and then his desire to become his idea of a Hokage. By all rights, he should be killed, yet the blonde never stopped trying to save him, even when logic dictated otherwise. She looked at Naruto and gave him a nod of respect, not one she gave lightly, but in hindsight, Naruto's accomplishments were more than enough to warrant such respect from the Amazon Queen. They saw the two be healed by Sakura, who was utterly relieved alongside Kakashi that the feud between the two had finally come to an end, and soon both of them unified their powers even in such a state and free both the allied shinobi forces and all those trapped in the infinite Tsukuyomi and the Bijou, who were utterly pleased to be freed as promised by Naruto. They witnessed in the end how Naruto and Sasuke parted way as friends and brothers in both arms and spirit as Naruto gave him back the old forehead protector of their youth, and how the young Kurama was sealed again and this time willingly into Naruto. As the images played out before them along with the funeral for the slain ninja as well as Neji, this allowed the Amazons who witnessed all of this to look at Naruto differently. Before them was a man who not only came from a different realm, but also from a different culture and had actually been part of a prophecy that made him and his compatriot either the savior or destroyers of their world and the ones who would complete the sealing of an ancient evil, and last but certainly not the least, the ones would end the cycle of hatred brought about between two brothers because of two conflicting beliefs. They would also see the life Naruto had 2 years after the war and how he would gain a new arm from the cells of Hashirama thanks to Tsunade herself, and how he would fight the misguided descendant of Hamura, Tonari, who sought to punish humanity for weaponizing chakra due to a mistake in the way he saw the will of his ancestor. And it was also here they saw how he would eventually learn of Hinata's love for him from when they were children and how he had become the light of her life and power that drove her to grow even though it was clear that he did not remember her all that well and was oblivious to her feelings. This only happened when instead of kidnapping Hinata herself, Tonari kidnapped her sister Hanabi, and thus he and Hinata along with some of his kindred ninja went to save Hanabi and here saw her memories of him. Diana looked at the blonde who was looking at the memories there and saw that he indeed loved Hinata with all that he was. And no doubt seeing this memory again and reliving it was both good and torturous for him since he was alive and she was not. Still, the love that was there was utterly genuine and he seemed to be more accepting of the fact that he was here and she was not. She was not the only one to take notice of this fact as Hippolyta looked at the images well to further understand Naruto on the side of him being a husband and father. They saw how he did his best to confess and how he was briefly heartbroken by Hinata's joining Tonari after she gave him the scarf and said goodbye to him. His fighting spirit had been taken from him by this and not even Sai and Shikamaru could shake him out of it until he was able to recover thanks to Sakura and eventually launched a full-scale attack to free Hinata from the man and prevent Tonari from destroying the world everyone here fought so hard to save and also the future no matter how hard it was going to be. And together they faced him and defeated him in a massive battle that truly shook heaven itself and afterwards, they took back Hanabi's eyes but not before finally making him see the error of his ways. They saw how Tonari finally knowing his mistake promised to them that he will never stand against humanity again and make amends for all he had done and soon they saw how Hinata and Naruto would finally be a couple as Naruto revealed the truth of his mother's scarf and how he finally wanted to spend the very rest of his life with her. And this made Hinata truly happy as they kissed for the first time. And after months of dating and growing closer how they would become husband and wife, they saw him as a loving father and husband to his son and daughter as well as Hinata, and how he grew in strength and power to finally become Hokage. The Amazons saw him lead his people to greatness and how despite his duties he still made time for his family and friends. His training of both his son and daughter Boruto and Himawari and being a loving husband to Hinata, though naturally Naruto refused to show the more intimate moments. Those were his and Hinata's and no way was he going to show them off. He may be a pervert of his own admission but even he had his limits and showing his private time with Hinata was certainly one such limit. He would also work hard in establishing better relations with not just the other villages but the feudal lords of distant countries. The way he did so showed how far he had grown from being the bratty kid that he was then to being the legendary hero that he was now alongside Sasuke who redeemed his name and his clan's own name as well. But he also made sure to spend what time he had well with his children, personally training his son and daughter when they were ready. They saw him step down eventually as Hokage and how he would bid farewell to his beloved wife when Hinata passed on a year before he left the post of Hokage, and after a period of mourning and remembrance. They saw how he would become a sage, traveling the lands in his home continent and beyond righting wrongs, saving the innocent and punishing the guilty, and how he became a worldwide ambassador and brokered many a peace deal, and while worshipped to the extent of a demigod due to his ties to Hagamoro, he was always modest about it and never sought to use it for his own gain no doubt because of him recalling the danger of letting power get to his head. Yes, he still had some of his arrogance, but it only applied to his rivalry with Sasuke and not much else. And soon, they witnessed his death the same way he recalled it when he finally returned home to Konoha and after his passing words to his son and daughter, his grandchildren, his visiting all the places that made him, seeing the faces of those who passed him into the afterlife, and how he lay there in the field, seeing the spirits of his friends, loved ones, and his wife as his life faded slowly and for the last time. He closed his eyes and passed on. Soon they saw him among the dead of his world, happy and reunited with all of his kindred, at peace. Then they saw the events that tore him from them, and finally they saw the images of him awakening in the ocean, moving upwards and then walking to Themyscira. As soon as the images ended and the Amazons saw themselves back in the hall, Hippolyta was silent in processing all she had seen and knowing that in all of this, the lasso showed he spoke the truth. Naruto said nothing but it was clear to her that the memories, both good and bad were still there in his mind, and seeing them again was hard on him. But he recovered and spoke once more, calm as he could be. "And now you know who I am, Queen Hippolyta. My story is ended, so, what do you wish to do with me?" The blonde queen thought this over. They had a lot to consider, and so far what she had seen was very different from what he was used to. But for now she felt that it would be best that they decide what would be Naruto's situation in regards to his stay in her homeland. "Naruto, you have given us a lot to think over, and this is not something that can be solved in one meeting. For now, however, I will allow you to remain here in Themyscira until you chose to leave, or if possible, find answers on how is it that you arrived here." Hippolyta nodded towards the guards, and they released Naruto, and soon he was escorted to a small house under guard, though this time the Amazons were not looking at him with hostile intent, more along the lines of curiosity and awe, the awe being how much he had endured, which was for them quite impressive. Even the normally hostile Artemis was not glaring at him and was actually deep in thought about what she had witnessed. In the Amazon meeting hall, Hippolyta was deep in thought on all that she had witnessed concerning the man's story and his memories. None of them were lies in her mind due to the lasso, and the observations she made was telling as well. She was not alone, as Philippus, Artemis, Diana, Alexa, Donna, and several of the older Amazons were there, along with the priestesses who had cast the spell. They looked at the spheres that had in many ways shown them the man's memories, and soon she spoke to them. "Sister, we now have an idea on who this Naruto Uzumaki is. What are your thoughts on him?" Philippus, by virtue of being the general of their armies, and out of the older Amazons, Hippolyta's right-hand woman spoke first. "He is indeed not native to our lands, and also is hardly one would expect from a man from man's world that lie beyond our shores. Then again, he is not of their world either. He is for all intents and purposes homeless, yet hardly helpless as well. He has power, skill, and potential that can make him a truly deadly force to be reckoned with, but from what I have seen, I do not see him as a danger to our people, your highness." "How would you say so, Philippus?" "He has shown that he had a strong sense of honor and will not attack anyone who he knows is not an enemy of his unless he is attacked first, nor is he the kind to start conflict without due cause. He also is someone who is a firm believer of peace and cooperation, as we have seen in his memories, as well as him having a remarkably strong will for living through such a life. That and the fact that he comes from a far different world and grew up in a far different culture than what we knew means he has no reason to be a danger to us." Hippolyta nodded a bit. It was a sound argument, as Naruto was indeed not native to this world, neither theirs or man's world. Long ago in secret she had been allowed by Athena to see how much the world had changed, and while some things had changed, not all of it had, which was the last time she had come there in the world of men. And while there were some good men, most were still in the mindset that did not make her feel that contact with them was a good idea at the time. That was at least several centuries ago as far as she knew, and ever since then she had not made any excursions in the world of men, and so far a new tournament send a new champion of the gods to see the world had not been hosted. Naruto on the other hand was truly different, though she tempered what she privately agreed with Philippus, as she knew that others would have a differing opinion on the matter of the blonde male's presence on their home island. And in Artemis, she was not disappointed. "I do not fully trust him despite what he has accomplished, your highness. I do agree that he is not like most men that I have seen. Still we cannot just simply ignore that he can become a danger to our people in some manner." Hippolyta was curious on that front and spoke to the redhead, keeping in mind that despite her fiery disposition, Artemis did have some reason for her hostility. "In what manner can he be a danger, Artemis?" The redhead replied, "His godfather Jiraiya and his perverted nature. I do not disrespect the man's abilities and his sacrifice, it's his perverted tendencies and his open admission that worry me. I have no doubt that Naruto himself may have had some of that perversion rub off on him, or he has some of his own, which is why I am seeing him as a threat towards our sisters in terms of decency. But if he is able to control it, then I will be more lenient in that regard." Hippolyta raised an eyebrow at that, though she could understand where Artemis was going there. Even with all of his accomplishments he was still a man who did not mind accepting that he was still a regular person. And like most men he was very appreciative of women in more ways than one. However, she and no doubt the others in this hall can take heart in the fact that at least he was not the kind to think that as a man all women are property and the like, as he had grown in a culture where women were respected, had power and more besides. Plus it was clear that his love for his mother figure, and his wife was very strong. plus his close friendship with his female friends was telling. That is true, I will take it into consideration as well, Artemis. Still, as long as he has done nothing to violate our laws or harm our sisters, I will not allow any harm to come to him. Is that understood? Yes, my queen. Hippolyta soon looked at Alexa to see and hear her thoughts on him. He is an interesting person, and I am rather intrigued by this medical jutsu that they are using there, along with all of their medical advances. Apart from that, their culture is rather interesting as well, even more so their open-mindedness to having women in positions of power and leadership. Naruto had shown that he was rather modest in some very interesting facets of his life, even though some who later learned of his ancestry and had even worshipped to a degree of being a demigod. He, unlike Hercules, who had no problem showing his pride and arrogance for having Zeus as his father, he refused to be seen as such, and even when his fame as a war hero caught up with him, he never for one moment became arrogant about it, even though it was shown that he took some measure of pride in his accomplishments. But he deserved such accolades since he worked hard to be where he was now in that stage of his life prior to his passing into the realm of the dead, no doubt because of his encounters and life experiences. Namely his meeting with Itachi, who reminded him of how his father became Hokage, along with him understanding that being Hokage meant being truly dedicated to the defense of those who were your family and in turn, to the village and its people as a whole, that he was such in his actions and words. She soon turned to Diana, and the silent question was answered by her daughter. I feel that Naruto Uzumaki is not a danger to our people, mother, and as far as I have seen he is not like the men that we know, which is naturally shared by my fellow Amazons here. As long as he is here he should remain as our guest, and forgive me if this is presumptuous of me, mother, but he can be an ally as well if he proves himself even more. Hippolyta raised an eyebrow at that, and while some Amazons were not comfortable with the idea, she spoke to end the discussion and to learn just why her daughter would say that they could consider him an ally. What makes you so sure that Naruto can be an ally to our people, daughter? The Amazons have not had a male ally since ever, apart from our occasional meetings with the gods. He is not of our world, mother, and he is raised differently, that we all know now, so instead of being an enemy, he is more a neutral party and a potential ally if he proves himself to be trustworthy. Regardless of how he came to our shores, he has shown that unlike the men we know of, he is far more open-minded, and also being raised in such a society as his sees us as equals, and he is not showing any hint of wishing to fight us. The other Amazons were divided in their views. Some were more accepting of the blonde ninja, while others were not too sure yet on having him here among them. But what they can all agree on was that he was a unique person, and so far has proven himself to be far different from the way they viewed men. Hippolyta then decided that for now they were to treat Naruto well as a guest until time came that a decision would be made on all aspects of his stay among them. Still, she felt it would be best that Naruto be among those who he knows he can trust, and thus decided that since it was she who in a sense brought him here among them, Diana would hold that duty. Diana, since it was you who found him and brought him here, I shall place you as Naruto Uzumaki's watcher during his stay here in our home. Anything he does is to be reported to me at the end of the day. Is that understood? Yes, mother. One Amazon, however, in the background was none too happy about that. In the house given to Naruto, Naruto sat down once more on the bed. It was unlike any bed he had ever slept on, but at least the cool air coming in from the windows was nice. He was at least relieved that he could have some peace for now. Seeing and remembering his past life was not exactly something one did for fun. Still, in some ways it felt good to remember for a time all that he had done from start to finish. Now, however, he knew that he had to look for answers on why he was somehow brought back from death, and also what was the cause. The same thoughts he had before, but had side-tracked them when he spoke to the Amazons of his past. Now, however, it was time for him to find answers, and perhaps he could ask for their help and see if they could have some records that could explain his resurrection, and also if there were any entities who could have a hand in this, just like how Hagomoro and played a role in saving his life when Kurama, or rather the young half of Kurama, was removed from him by Madara. However, that train of thought awakened something else in his mind. Kurama and the others. It was by far the strangest and weirdest idea he ever had. After all, when he died, he could only speak to Kurama and the other Bijou due to their chakra connected to him via his being Azura's reincarnation and the fact that he was pretty much the only human they were willingly allies and friends with, and with him being their meeting ground, so to speak. But now that he was alive, he began to wonder if perhaps he could try and contact them. It was an absurd idea even to him since he was in another world and he had just been reborn. He had doubts that he could even sense them anymore. But if there was one thing Naruto knew about himself and knew it to be true, he was never the kind to give up like he had nothing to gain at all. He decided to think on how to do this, though he knew that in order to do so, he would have to check his chakra levels to make sure that he had the chakra needed for what would be seen as an insane idea to the nines. He began to reach deep into himself and realized that his chakra, while present, was still not at the level he had in his past life, but it is currently at the level when he was starting at the academy, though he could tell that his chakra control was enough to allow him to use Raisin Shuriken and potentially Sage Mode. Kind of makes sense. I just got resurrected and I know it's not the Edo Tensei that did this, so I guess my power and form have to be trained again in order to get back to what it was. This was not going to be an easy thing, and besides that, he felt that he might as well do something to keep his mind occupied and also help in training, or rather retraining himself once more. So he figured that asking for something to do while on the island would help him not only make himself useful but help him establish some more friendly ties with the Amazons and hopefully not do anything that could get him in trouble. Plus he could tell that despite his decrease in power, he at least had the same level of control that was the same as what he had when he began to train in Senjutsu. At least it was a start, but for now he needed some sleep. The next day, Naruto woke up early and stretched from his bed and wondered briefly where he was, until the memories of the past day and a half hit him once more. Shaking his head at what he recalled, the former 7th Hokage decided that now would be the best time to talk to the Amazon Queen and hopefully get her permission to do something productive with his time here on their island instead of being lazy. In a way, recalling all the memories helped him regain his full self in a sense. It could be wishful thinking on his part, but he seemed to feel more settled now that he had done telling his story. He got up and thankfully had some of his clothes there were still in excellent condition and were modest, at least for him to use while here, though he kept in mind that sooner or later he was going to need new clothing soon, since relying on only one set of clothes was not exactly a wise idea to begin with, and for various reasons as well. Once he got to feeling his current chakra levels and found them to be all right so far, as well as do some light breathing exercises, he decided to see if he was still under guard, and sure enough, there were at least 2 guards armed and armored nearby. He should have expected that, and he was willing to make do with it. The women looked at him neutrally, and he was at least thankful for that, since it meant that he was still on something of a clean slate with them. He cleared his throat a bit and spoke to the leader of the pair. "Is there any chance I can be allowed to speak to the queen? May I ask why you wish to see our leader male?" Well, at least the male reference that is laced with hostility is not around. Of course I could be wrong. I just wish they drop the male thing and call me by my real name. Still, all things considered, better that than nothing, and way better that being speared or shot by arrows. I wish to see her. If I may ask a favor of sorts while I am here on your home, I assure you that there is nothing the least bit malicious in this request. The leader looked at her subordinate and decided that they would do so, but first, you may have to remain here until we contact Queen Hippolyta and see if she is willing to abide by your request to see her. She is queen and thus has many duties that she must oversee. It's all right, I am willing to wait. The guards nodded and the leader left her subordinate to watch over Naruto, and he decided to sit back and merely take in the sight of the island while moving to the lotus position. Much to the curiosity of the female guard, but she decided not to interfere with the blonde ninja as she was unsure of what he was going to do apart from just sit there. In reality, however, Naruto did have another reason for being like this. He planned to test himself by trying to use Sage Mode, just a bit, since he was still slightly unsure on how much of his original power and control was left to him after he had been brought back to life. Okay, this should be a cakewalk. At least I still recall how to do this. Alright, looking good so far, and, whoa, okay, did not expect that. And Naruto's thoughts were in that direction for a very good reason, as the sheer potency of the nature chakra that permeated the whole of Themyscira was something else. There were only 2 places he could think of that match it right now. The very first was Mount Myobokuzen, and the other one was the place when he fought with none other than the still incomplete form of Kaguya when her powers had not fully manifested. The sheer amount of power coming from this island was new, and had it not been for his training in Senjutsu and his chakra control, he would have undergone the same problem he had before when he started training in order to fight Pain/Nagato. That he did not want to happen. for now though he severed his connection to the energy of the world and was pleased that at least this experiment did not end up with him becoming a decorative item on this island. As he broke the connection and felt the energy of nature bleed out of him, he looked to see the leader return with some more guards and he stood up and spoke to her once she was close. Of course he did so with respect in his tone. "May I ask if my request is heeded?" "It has been granted. Come on then, best you settle this matter quickly with the queen now than later." "Right, well, I am ready." "Later. You wish to find work on Themyscira?" Hippolyta expected something important from Naruto when one of her people came to her chambers and mentioned that he sought an audience with her if she could spare him some time. But this was certainly one of the things she expected from the man in question. Still there was no sense in asking why he was asking for such a thing, as this would give her more insight into his character. "Yes, I do not want to be a burden to you and your people, Queen Hippolyta, so I wish to earn my own keep here and pull my own weight. You are a guest here after all, Naruto, so there is no reason for that. I do no contest that your highness, and I am indeed thankful for your acceptance of my presence here, but I have lived on my own for a very long time and also worked hard to get where I was in past life. Hard work and ethic is part and parcel of who I am and I do not want to be seen as a freeloader. I can bet that knowing that I do nothing to contribute to the daily work here on your homeland would not sit well with your people after all." He does have a point, most interesting indeed. Hippolyta thought it over and it seemed like a very reasonable request and would actually help him become more acceptable in their island. Women here in Themyscira had been used as slave labor by men in the past and thus have little tolerance for those men who they would see do nothing but lounge all day and feed of the labors of others like parasites. If this helped improve his standing and prevent any possible conflicts, then it would be worth it, and she could be able to see how he would interact among her people more. "Very well, I see no reason for your request not to be granted. I will see if some of my sisters have work for you to do. Do not be surprised though if some of my sister may find your request odd. So there is a chance they may decide to give you the worst jobs." Naruto nodded in agreement. The next few days for Naruto were a flurry of activity, though a lot of it reminded him a good deal of his time working in Konoha when he was a kid, and besides it was a good way to at least get in the good graces of his hosts and not get into trouble. So far he helped in cutting wood and hauling it to the city for use in their fires and carvings as well as ship construction. Naturally he had to be shown what sort of wood the Amazons favored in all their works and what they will not use, which he accepted, and he began to work on that part of his job. Of course the last few days were not always so good as some of the Amazons did their best to make him work much harder than before. However, just like the time he hauled those exhausted miners on his back while water walking as a kid, he took that in stride, as it not only helped him get back into shape but also helped him ascertain how much work he had to do in order to get back to his old levels. Besides, the harder they worked him, the more he could improve himself. While he was allowed to have a meal 3 times a day, he usually had to contend with the fact that there were armed and alert guards watching his every move. He could understand their caution since he had to contend with that when he did his work as Hokage and usually had ANBU guards with him, not to mention when they were older. He had his son and daughter Boruto and Himawari watching him along with Sarada and Mitsuki when they were now Chunin. He was a guest but still someone they were going to keep a close eye on. In fact, if he was being honest, if they did a poor job at it he would have been sorely disappointed. Still it was not all bad. Diana had taken the time to hang out with him, though for the most part it was because she was by extension the one that got him into Themyscira, so in hindsight watching over him was her duty as well. That much Diana confirmed when she told him of her being his watcher. He smiled at that and told her that he was all right with it and understood the reasoning. Plus it was nice that she was the one, since she was open-minded and was more tolerant of men than most. Donna and Alexa were close seconds though, like any big sister. Artemis was nearby to watch him when Alexa was near her, not that he was bothered by it. When Himawari became a beauty like her mom, Boruto would hover over his baby sister like a hawk, much to his and Hinata's amusement, so he understood the feeling, even more so when he did the same thing as well, the very second some poor guy did anything to hurt his little princess. Then he and Boruto would rain hell on them, and that was only if Hinata would leave anything for them to deal with once she was done. Soon the Amazons, who were the ones giving him the tougher assignments, began to lose their distrust towards him, and while that was still a while, it helped set a good pace. Plus it was lot better than having to deal with people being too set in their ways on his behalf. Of course, he had his share of people who were not too trusting of him. One such person was Io, the weaponsmith of the Amazons. for reasons he was not that sure of yet. She seemed to dislike him being close to Diana, not that she was trying to flatten him or anything, but more along the lines of telling him not to get too fresh with Diana. Not that he was going to do that. He respected Diana and was more concerned about making a good impression and eventually proving himself to her and her people. The days soon turned to weeks, and after at least 2 months things seemed to be coming to a more normal routine, for which he was thankful. But like anything else, it was not going to stay that way for long, especially with Naruto Uzumaki in the mix. In the nearby forest, Naruto was busy moving a new pile of logs onto the cart while being watched by the Amazons, and right now he had gotten some spare training into himself, namely on how to sense chakra through senjutsu. He however used it carefully since he had to get used to the sheer level of chakra this place had in it. He also decided to keep to himself that he had found traces of chakra in Diana, and not merely chakra at the level of civilians, but around genin to senior genin, which surprised him since by definition, someone of Diana's age should not have that level of chakra in her. What was even more strange was that her chakra had traces of nature chakra in her. This confused Naruto, but he kept in mind that his sensory abilities needed to be back at a higher level, so he could be wrong. Still, that discovery was good food for thought, but as he was about to report that he had gathered his quota for the day, a blast of air hit the forest and then a flash of light, surprising the blonde ninja and the Amazons. Naruto then decided to reach out with his sage mode and then sense chakra, at least 9, but there was no way that these were human. And what shocked him more was that he recognized those signatures. No way. Get the princess and the queen. Summon the Hei. Naruto ignored the Amazon guard's shocked cry as he rushed towards the signatures. He had no idea if this was real, but he knew his senjutsu training was high level and not the kind to lead him into the wrong path. But he still grappled with the meaning of those signatures as he tore through the forest and soon arrived at a clearing and then heard a voice. Hello. We got lucky here, guys. Look over there. Lucky Chome has done it again. Another voice then came out. So it would seem, sister, good to see that he is alive still. How are you, Naruto-sama? Naruto was trying his best to make sense of what he was looking at. He just knew there was no way what he was looking at was real. But right before him were Shikaku, Matabi, Isabu, Son Goku, Kuku, Saiken, Chome, Jiguki, and a certain 9-tailed fox Hew thought he would never see again. Kurama? Nice to see you too, Naruto. Been a while, huh? What the hell? What's wrong, kid? Surprised to see us? Naruto looked at the grinning Son Goku and wondered just what had happened to the usually stern and on occasion loud 4-tailed ape sage. Then he began to think that perhaps they were back to being young again. That might mean they were a lot more mellow than when he last met them, though. He swore he could still see the manic gleam in Shikaku's eyes that scared the shit out of him when he was a kid and fought him and Gaara for the first time. Matatabi soon spoke in her usually nice tone. It is good to see you are well, Naruto-san. We used up quite a large amount of our energy to bring you back to life and help with your arrival here, though even then we were worried if you would recover. It is indeed good to see you up and about. Gyuki nodded in agreement, and the same could be said for the others, though it was clear that Isabu was a bit apprehensive when he stared at the Amazons who were still staring at him and the others. The 3-tailed armored turtle made that clear as he spoke to Naruto. Naruto-sama, are they going to hurt us? Oh. No worries, Isabu, they won't do that. Naruto looked at the Amazons silently, asking them to lower their weapons since it was not a good idea. There was no doubt in his mind that the Bijou, even in their smaller states, were still powerful, and being immortal as well meant that they could take the hits, but he was not going to take the risk. Not only that, he knew that Kurama and his siblings might end up wrecking Themyscira, and he did not want that. Thankfully Diana gave them a nod and they lowered their weapons. Shikaku on the other hand was not so diplomatically minded. They can bloody try. This will be fun. Naruto groaned at that, but it was of all the Bijou Kuku who berated Shikaku. Usually that would be all of them or Kurama who did that. Put a lid on your desire for battle, Shikaku. They are not the enemy here. Shikaku glared at Kuku but relented in the end when he was glared at by everyone else in his family and even Naruto, who had at times done his own turn keeping the Tanuki from going overboard. Fine anyway, where are we? What is this place? I sure as hell know this ain't no desert. Kurama finally sighed and spoke. Put a sock in it, you loud-mouthed Tanuki. Bite me, you idiotic kitsune. Before it could get worse, as both Sand Raccoon and Fire Fox faced off, a pair of glowing lights appeared and an all too familiar voice came out one of the spheres as the two began to take human form. "That will be enough, Shikaku, Kurama, we are guests among the Amazons and I will not have you, my children, misbehave in their sovereign nation. That is quite rude and I know I tried to teach you better manners." All the Bijou nodded and both Shikaku and Kurama spoke respectfully. "Sorry, father." Naruto was now all the more wide-eyed as he recognized the now visible figures. If seeing Kurama and the other Bijou was shocking enough, the pair he was looking at right now really made Naruto's jaw drop. After all, before him were none other than Hagamoro, and his brother Hamura. "Greetings, Naruto, it has been some time. I see. I trust your new body is recovering well?" Naruto shook his head and then stared at the sage and his sibling. "Yeah, it's fine now. Then can you tell me what the heck happened?" Hamura was not bothered and replied,